Good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session entitled Manage Construction from Anywhere Using BlackSmithSoft for BIM. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Sheikh Kassouf. I'm the VP Operation at BlackSmithSoft. I'm a mechanical engineer and with 22 years of experience working in the construction industry. I'm skilled in building information modeling, workplace planning, system integration, and project control. I have worked for some of the largest contractors, including Consolidated Contractors Company, BAMCO, and several other JVs like Fluor, Technip, JGC, Shioda, Saipem, and Chevron. If you have any question for me, please send them in the chat to the host BlackSmithSoft. We will answer them in the order they are received toward the end of the webinar. Now, we're going to share some poll with you for 1 minute to have an idea about the audience, and then we'll start the presentation after. Okay, good morning again. So our company is BlackSmithSoft. Now, what I'm going to be sharing today in this webinar is based on our experience in so many types of project, whether it is oil and gas, infrastructure, technology, and so on. So we decided to use some sort of fusion between those, let's say, construction management methods in order to come up with one that we try to cover most of them. And most importantly, all of this is on the cloud. About our team, we have around 50 years of experience in the construction industry, mainly mega project, whether it is airport, building, infrastructure, and so on. We have 20 years of experience in the BIM industry. And we have also a good experience in integrating various systems together. We cover all phases of the construction, whether it is design, construction, handover. Why Blacksmith for BIM? Well, we believe we are the first cloud-based system that allows you to use 3D model over the cloud in order to make use of its data to manage your construction project virtually from anywhere. Now, let's look at any project. We have an owner who goes to a project management firm and they ask them to execute a project for him. These people will contact a designer firm, and eventually the designer will start to feed them back data about the design. Now, definitely in a perfect world, the designer would do the BIM themselves, but we've noticed with many of our clients, they also recruit a separate design firm that take the data from the designer and try to build the BIM model. Definitely after that, they will start contacting supplier, and supplier also have obligation to deliver BIM model, which will be a better level of detail than the one provided by the designer. And all of these is being, let's say, collected after they do their due diligence, their coordination, and so on. It's given to a general contractor. Now, the general contractor job is, first of all, he needs to create a plan and put a budget against this plan. And then he needs to detail the plan to a level that he can give it to his construction team. Definitely before the start of any job, he needs to make sure that he is ready to execute this job. This is why he needs to have some sort of checklist to make sure he is ready. After that, whenever he do or execute any activity on site, he needs to be able to report it in a seamless way and a way that is quantifiable. And after that, he take whatever progress he did, he plug it into a payment application and request his money, and he get paid. And definitely at the end of the project, he need to be able to do a proper handover. Now, if you want to look at the planning, this is a sample schedule. We can see that most of the plans or the baseline that is used by the contractor is level 3. In other words, they will take a very simplified level of detail so that it will be traced or tracked by the owner and by the project management firm. However, for a construction contractor to be able to manage those stuff, he needs to detail it further. Thus, the creation of what we call weekly jobs. Now, if you have a BIM model, or if you don't have a BIM model, you still have the ability to manage it. Like, for example, if there is no BIM model, like in this case, we are talking about preparation of certain detailed drawing. In this case, we can track it in the system without having an access to the 3D model. However, if there is a BIM model for such an activity, like for example, here we have a slab. In this case, we can get all the information we need from the BIM model, like the quantity, the location, dimension, and so on. Now, definitely, at the end, you will have some very few lines or activity in the level 3 will be translated into hundreds of activity in the level that is managed by the contractor. The most important part is to keep a backward link from that level of detail to the level 3 schedule that is managed by the project management firm. Now, when we talk about budget, definitely we will have a budget. In this case, this is in line with the CSI format. You can see that in order to be able to trace the budget, we have 4 types of, let's say, cost. The first one is a cost-based budget, which is mainly like a set of milestones that need to be paid at a certain period. So whenever you reach this milestone, you have to say that you pay this cost. We have the second one, which is man-hour based. This is dependent on how much man-hour you spend and you earn, and this is how much you need to pay. The third one is a timeline based, which is, this is similar as if you are renting something. So you have a fixed monthly fee that you have to pay. And the last one is quantity based. This is dependent on how much you do quantity or how much you execute quantity. Now, in order to link your schedule with your construction breakdown, your cost breakdown structure, eventually some school will tell you, okay, we need to go to the lowest level of detail, which is the operation level, and create the link. Some other school will tell you, look, this is too much detail, we cannot trace it. We need to be able to do it on the activity level. So either way, whether you go with this school or with that school, it is supported by our system. But the most important part is for you to be able to know how much you have earned in cost against how much you have spent. And this is the key to know whether you are doing your job efficiently or not. Definitely, in order to know how much you have spent as a cost, you always get it from your accounting system, but the challenging part is to be able to match this one with how much you have really done job on site. Now, in order to get there, definitely we receive the BIM model, and sometimes it doesn't have enough level of detail of information for us in order to be able to use it to manage construction. Now, in this case, our system will allow you to export all the data from your model into an Excel sheet. And then you can request your engineer or maybe your estimator to modify or complement this data. And then we bring it back into the model, and then your model is updated. So for example, originally, this model did not have any property called bill of quantity, or he was using a unit of measure that's not in line with the bill of quantity. You can see here, it was complemented, then added back to the model. Now, if we want to detail our schedule, we have 2 types of activity that represent an actual work happening, and other which are supporting activity. Now, the activity that represent actual work happening, it can be traced in the BIM model. So for example, in this case, we are talking about site preparation. I have here a piece of landscape that I need to do work on. I can trace it in the BIM model. So what we do is we make a relationship between the actual model using some sort of BIM hierarchy, which will take, in this case, project building then model, and our work breakdown structure. Now, the end result of this will be a set of documents that will detail how you need to give work order to your site team. So you can see this is a printed PDF that get extracted directly from the system. Definitely in the demo, I will show you more level of detail because this is a bit not readable in here. But the most important is in every one of those work order, we need to have cleared the constraint. We need to show the people how to report progress. We need to tell them what material they need, and if they need to be prepared, like some tools or some training related to safety or some QC documentation, we need to put it in the readiness checklist. We need to give them all the document they need to properly execute this job and make sure that they always have the latest piece of document. And definitely if there is a snapshot that need to give them more level of detail or understanding of what they need to do, we need to be able to put all of those in one work order. Now, after they do their job, definitely they will start to report their job. So in this case, you can see, for example, we can put what we call a progress template. In this case, you need to define access for this sort of activity, which is site preparation. You need to install barricade and do the cleaning on that piece of landscape. Every one of them will give you a certain percentage, like this give you 25% and so on. Now, definitely many of our clients will tell us, okay, well, how can I assure that my foreman is telling me the truth? Definitely this is, let's say, complemented by a quality report, which is some sort of form signed by the QC verifying that this job was done and according to a quality standard. When this is done, we just roll up these details into the Primavera level or into the level 3 level of detail. And then when this is done, we will go back to our budget and cross-check when we execute this job, how much did we earn? So how much we are supposed to have spent for this and how much did we actually spend? And immediately we know whether we are efficient or not. Of course, when you do a certain job, you need to get paid. So what we did is we created a direct link between what you progress and how much eventually you will earn. So this is an example. When you finish this sort of job, you will create a payment application that takes those. It is a signed payment application. And in this case, when you get approval from the client, definitely it has a revision number. So if the client asks you to revise it or modify it, and then you will have a payment application that is saved and tracked in your system. Now, this is in short the application. Definitely as we were working, we start to see lots of requirements. For instance, if somebody is using BIM 360 docs, they need a more sophisticated ways of searching. So we introduce what we call a power search, which allow you to search better the BIM 360. And this will be coming soon from the Autodesk App Store. Of course, if you would like to see our video, you can come to BlackSmithSoft.com. And we have a number of videos that elaborate further what we are doing. Now I will stop the presentation and move directly. Okay, so when you open our application, this is how it will look like. You have originally a dashboard, which will show you a summary of your project. For instance, here I have 3 buildings. I have 4 3D models which represent those buildings. I have detailed my schedule to have 108 weekly job, and definitely I have used to create those 659 BIM objects to create those items. Now, the way we look at the project, eventually we have here what we call the project tree. This is a very important screen because here you can update your progress, you can close the construction period or the progress period, and you can close the cost period, because when you close them, everything will go to the history and you will have a history of all your, let's say, job or all your progress as you are progressing. Definitely, if you go further in detail, you will see here the various building, and under each building, the various, what we call model. Now, if we want to cross-check this one with what we call the Primavera schedule, so we normally import directly the Primavera schedule into our system. You can see we can view it in this format, what we call the graphic format. This is a friend of the planner, I would say, because they would export this into Excel and import it to their Primavera. We have the ability to do direct link with the Primavera using their API, but it was not recommended by any of our clients because they always would like to tweak the data before they send it back to the plan. You can view it in a tabular format, which is a drill down format, and you can view it in a Gantt chart. This is like a very similar to what you see if you have a scheduling software. Now, this one, every one of those activities in here, like for example, this EC 010 and so on, will be linked to some part of the 3D model. Now, the linking will happen on the weekly job. So if I go to the weekly job, you can see every one of those weekly jobs will have basically link to the schedule, so that I know I'm talking about which schedule activity, and it have a link to the 3D model so that I know what I'm talking about. The most important piece here is you can always see the delta between the date you are planning and how much you're putting as target. So the target is what you are planning, really how you're planning to execute it. And this is what's coming from your scheduling software. So if there is a difference, you know, sometime, for example, if you go to maybe these sort of activities, originally the activity is one single activity, but it is composed of 4 weekly jobs. So you start in February, you finish in March, even though the original activity tell you have to finish in April. As long as the latest activity finish in April, so you are not going beyond the scheduling activity, you're still on the safe side. This is basically like a good check for you. Now, let's go to what we call the building. And in this building, the building is basically a representation of various 3D models or BIM model. Normally, in any project that you go to, you will have one BIM model representing the structural, another the architectural, a third the MEP, and you need to put them all together. You use the building to do so. Now, the good thing about it is, if you use this approach, we have a direct link with how you are planning to do the job, and we create what we call a 4D. So this is an example of a 4D. If you say play, you will see that how these guys are planning to execute their job. So anything which changed its color to orange, it means that this is being executed in this time. So we can see we have the various items. The good thing about this one is you can pause it at any minute and make use of the Autodesk capability. Like, for example, you can do measurement. You can do exploding of these items so that you can see, you can even show all the object again. You can do all of sorts. You can check for properties. If you need to, all of these, you can do it while you are doing your, let's say, 4D. Now, other than the 4D, we have noticed some of our clients wanted some sort of report, which eventually give them a full, let's say, a presentation of that specific building. Normally, if you are, let's say, if you have a project that is selling to buyers, for example, if you have a bunch of villas you want to sell to buyers, this is a very good report because it shows transparency, because here you can see the S-curve, the various project clocks, and so on. And in the same time, you can see it in 3D model. And here you can say view progress, and the progress will highlight in color what job have started, and you know, every one of these colors will represent the actual status of the job. Now, the most important part of this is, if you want to share it with your buyer, you don't have to give him access to the platform, because we have what we call here this link. If you create this link, any person can access or view this one having this link. You can share it with your buyer to know the status of his specific items. Now, the other part which I would like to talk about is, if we go to the model tab, this one will give me all the 3D models. So let's take this one, for instance. If you open this one, you can see, let me just show you some of the capability because we are using force. So I can do measurement in here. So this is, we can do measurement, all sort of measurement. And we can at the same time explode the building. So when I say explode, it will take it apart so that I can see how every stuff is linked with other stuff. This is extremely powerful when you have a fabrication model to see like how the bolt will fit and so on. But the most important is we have what we call the model browser tree, because in this tree, you can press on any item and it will show you exactly the various items. Like these are the plumbing fixture, this is the duct. Of course, you can see multiple items together. So I press on the eye here. So this is all the HVAC system, for instance. So it is quite a powerful item. Now, if you press on any one of those, you can for sure see the properties which come in here. Now, what we allowed you to do is, if for any reason you want to export all these property in this model, you can say just export to Excel. You press on this button. It is quite a big file, so it will take maybe 10 or 15 seconds to be exported. Okay, here it is. It's 18 megabyte file. So I have now an Excel sheet containing all the property I need from my model. So if we look a bit at the detail, you can see the name, the dimensions. You can see all the property that makes sense for that specific piece, like this is 600 by 600 and so on. Sorry, I was just informed that you cannot see the Excel. Sorry, let me just share the Excel so that you can see it. So yeah, this is the Excel. So you can see the various items in Excel. Everything is divided by family. This is a very powerful way for you if you want to do some calculation or measurement. And most importantly, whatever you modify here, if you want to bring it back to the model, it can be brought back to the model. Let me go back to the actual model. So now we have looked at those. Definitely, if you have created your weekly job and you want to see how they are presented here, we can just press on each one of them. Now you can see, for example, this second one is talking about some piping. They are isolated in here. So you can have a good idea about our project. Now, the one that do not show in here, these could be the one which do not have a parent model. This is the whole idea. So this is about the models tab. Now I would like to go to a weekly job tab to show you how we normally carry the job. So let's, first of all, it is searchable and you can view it in this format or in a Gantt chart format. The Gantt chart format will show you how they are sequenced. So you can see when each one will start, when it will end. Let us search for that specific one, which is the concrete of the basement. Now for this concrete of the basement, let us look here in the detail. Now I know I need to do a basement for concrete. So the first thing I would do, I would come here and say, isolate the floors for me. Then I know it should be the lower floor. So this is one way of selecting it, but I know I need also to select this and this. We have introduced another way to use, you can use what we call the window selection. So I can use this window and it will select for me the item that falls within the intersection of this window. Definitely for this, if I want to trace it, it have to follow the concrete slab template. So in other words, I want to add it to my system. If I say here add to selection, you will see that I have two entries in my progressible object. The first entry is 239 square meter, and the second entry is 1759. Of course, if I want to know what I'm talking about here, I can always select this one and tell it to isolate. It will show me where is it in the model. I can select this and tell it isolate to see where is it in the model. So this is another way. Of course, you can see here, you have 3 steps. You have to place the barrier, you have to place the rebar, and then pour the concrete in order to earn all the progress. Of course, for me to be able to execute this job, I need to be constraint free. So I need some approval, some material approval, IFC drawing to be available. Of course, to execute this job, I need a set of materials. So I need, like ready-made concrete, 220 meter cube, and I need rebar 66 tons to be able to execute all of those. Now, definitely the number might seem a bit big. This is more than 1 week, of course. We have to divide it into multiple weekly jobs in order not to exceed the limit. Also, in order to execute my job, I need to make sure I have the method statement, I have the tool, HSE requirement are already met, procurement requirement are already met, QA, QC are already met, and so on. Now, also, the most important, in order to do so, I need to have access to the latest drawing. So in here, for example, you can see I have plan, detail, and some isometric view of that specific item. Of course, we have in here a direct link with the BIM 360 document. So the second you press on this hyperlink, it will take you to the BIM 360 document. So now when the BIM 360 documents will open, it will always take me to the latest revision so that I make sure I am seeing the latest revision. Of course, because we are using BIM 360, all functionality of BIM 360 also will be available. Like you have the clouding. If somebody did some clouding, you can do it. If somebody adds some comment on the drawing, all of these will be available and visible for you. So this is a direct link to the drawing. Of course, you can take snapshot. So here I don't have any snapshot. Maybe I can take one. And after you create the snapshot, you can generate what we call the PDF. Now the PDF is generated. As you can see here, we have some people who need to sign off and approve that, okay, this is the job that needs to be executed. How much are the key quantity? What sort of contract it is? How much man hour is required? So here, for example, the estimated man hour and so on. We can also come here and see what are the items that I need to progress. Of course, if your bill of quantity and your naming convention is more meaningful than this one, it will be very useful for the people on site to see how they need to progress stuff. We have also the material takeoff required, and we have the readiness checklist and the constraint, plus all the snapshots that have been taken eventually. Now, after I went and execute my job, definitely I need to start adding the item. Now, you can either add it directly here because this is compatible with your iPad, or many of the people, they prefer to, they prefer to export it to Excel and then do some editing. For example, here, he say, well, I finish all of these and I pour the concrete. Here, I only placed the rebar. And then, of course, you can re-import it. Now, I want you just to imagine when you are using such a system, what sort of, let's say, opportunity it gives you. Because, having such a link, you can, of course, enable what we call RFID. You can enable barcoding to report the progress based on this approach. It is very friendly with the lean because you can detail it to that level of detail. Of course, after I did this progress, I can always come to my project tree as a planner and say update progress. Now the system will highlight for me any modification that have changed. So you can see everything is the same color except this one. You see, it have changed. And this one also, it have changed. So those two have changed. Accordingly, I can either tell it, well, update based on the current status, or I can even myself, if the planner don't want to report the 7%, you want to report maybe 6.5 for some reason, he can always do this. You have to press tab actually for this to work. Okay, and then if I'm happy with this, I can always say commit. Now, when I commit this one, now it is updated, but it's not effective unless I close the period. I need to close the period so that it will be available for me in the weekly report. So you can update on daily basis, end of the week, you're happy, your planner is happy, project management is happy with the current progress, you just close it and it will become official. Now, having this level of detail in data, look what sort of report can be produced. So we can have in here what we call the dashboard. So you can see here the title, date, and so on, plus lots of project summary, milestone. You have here also some key indicator. For example, here it says he is 8 days ahead of schedule. And here he have some overrun, because you can see here it is on the red zone. We can see here the S curve. I can see here the various discipline. This is all customizable by the user. They can go by building, by discipline, by type of activity. And here we have also access to the risk. And if for any reason you want to highlight some stuff like area of concern to your client, you can plug them in here. The other report I want to show is what we call Skyline. Like this Skyline, for example, it is a report that we have borrowed from the oil and gas industry. So you can see here, it will give me a good idea whether my plan makes sense or not. So you can see this guy started with so many activities in here, then he waited maybe 2 or 3 months to start a certain job. Definitely, this is not a good plan. The good plan will mean that these numbers here, the man hours assigned here, should be homogeneous, and they go and you know, they follow a certain bell shape form, of course. And we have as well the progress report. This I shared before in the beginning. We have as well the cost report. Now, the cost report, here we can see it gives you what's the approved budget and eventually what's the original one. If there is no original one, we will keep it 0. But normally, you know, if you have a modification on the budget, you put it. The most important part is you can see here, for example, this guy have spent 312 US dollar, but he have earned 258. Let's see why. So I can detail as much as I want. Here, for example, he spent 11, he earned 15. This guy is good shape. But here, in the direct cost, for example, if we go to the site work activity, he have, in the civil work, he have spent 293, he earned 194. It means in this case, he have overrun. And thus, our guy know that he have a problem in the site preparation. This is very clear for him. Definitely, we can go to the site preparation and see what's the problem, why this guy have spent more than what he earned. This is the power of having this sort of link between the schedule and the budget. Now, after we finish the job, as we mentioned, we need to create what we call a payment application. So I can come to the payment application and say create. Now, we made the payment application in a way that if you have the item that were worked on, so for example, here you worked on the drawing, you worked on the inner floor. So you will have them and you will know how many weekly jobs were assigned to them. However, there are some other activity, like for example, if you have some engineering activity or some sort of rental, they will show up in here even though there is no progress on. The most important here is, for instance, let's look at the inner job. Because I have earned only 351 out of 1,759. So if I come and add it, it will take only the 359 because this is how much progress I did. Definitely, if I send it to the client and tell me, well, you are not eligible for 359 meters square, you only can take 300. I can always modify it. It will change the price accordingly. And then I can definitely create the application, the payment application, and it will be in this format. I can view it at any time. I can create a report out of it, and it have a certain workflow where you send it to the client and bring it back for approval. So this, in short, is the demo. I believe we are open to questions. If you have any question, please do. Okay, now I have here a question, which is how simple is it for BIM 360 user to integrate? Now, the model that we have seen in here, for example, this specific piece of model, this one originally, the way, because I'm able to access it is because I have a BIM 360 account in here, and I have plugged this specific project in this folder. So here you can see this technical school current .rvt. This is the model that I am able to access it. Of course, you can view it from BIM 360 as well. However, the difference between what we show and BIM 360 is the ability, you know, to complement and add stuff to it. So in other words, if you are a BIM 360 user, to have this application, definitely you would have a much bigger discount, because the portion that you need to pay for BIM 360 you already paid. So we are talking about you need only to pay for the BIM Blacksmith portion of the software, and this will, you will get a much better discount. Okay, I have another question, which is what BIM support, what BIM formats do you support? Now, definitely this one, we support all the format that they are supported by Forge. So for example, if I go here, Autodesk, Forge supported formats, and eventually we will have quite a big list. Anything supported in this list, we support it as well. And of course, if you need more format, like here you can see you have 3DM, ASM, DGN files, which is a Bentley file, DWF, DWG. You can have, I'm gonna select the one that I have experience with, for example, NWD, NWC. You will have as well the a view file. This is also, this is very famous in the oil and gas industry. So all of these are supported. If you go to that specific link, you will be able to see the various format. And if there is any format that's not supported in here, there is always the option that you can get a Navisworks, let's say, license, and you convert it to NWC, and then we can bring it back to our system. Okay, I have a question here which says, can reports and dashboard be customizable? Now, definitely all of these are customizable. The good thing about it is most of what we are using is already available in the market as open source. The trick is how to make use of it for the construction. Like you can see these sort of gadgets, you can see these S-curves. All of these are available in the market and we make use of them. Maybe the report which shows the model give a more, let's say, diverse list of the possible gadget that we can use for reporting. Definitely we have a very good experience in handling the reports and grouping them and so on. And most importantly, we can always show you what we call a visual reporting. So for example, this one, work on progress, it changed color on progress. If you want it by material, if you want it by maybe incident, by how many RFI it has, all of these, think of the idea, and definitely it's customizable accordingly. Okay, I believe if there is, okay. We have several members working in a project. How easy to control information and what they can see? Okay. Now, this system is based on the same system that is used by Instagram. So Instagram as a platform use exactly the same platform we are using. So we have all sort of access control. Any one of these three can be hidden and shown based on your access. Even some people can only view stuff they cannot modify. Some people can modify certain item for a period of time, then we can revoke it. So all of these sort of, let's say, access control is available. And the good thing, we are using a cloud platform that allow us to increase the size as much as we would like to. And in this case, for example, if you have a small project, you will start paying a small fee, and then if for any reason your project increase, so we can scale it up for you as well. So if you're starting with maybe 10 user or 20 user and suddenly you need 100 user, we don't need more than, you know, just to make a certain action on the website, and accordingly you can handle this number of users. Okay. We'll give one more minute. If there is no more question, I would like really to thank you for joining us in this webinar. I hope we gave you a good idea about how we are working, and hope to contact you in the future. Thank you all.